Ever since we met Dory and Brogy, One Piece fans have been dying to finally see Elbaf. But there's a problem. In the new world, we've always known what was next. Beginning with Punk Hazard, each arc was a continuation of the plan to take down Kaido. Even Whole Cake Island, a detour from this mission, was hinted at during Fishman Island. So, assuming the Straw Hats can beat Kaido, there's a question of where they will go after they save Wano. And with pressure on Oda to finish the story, there's a serious question of whether the Straw Hats will even have time to visit Elbaf before the final arc. In this theory, I'm going to explore why the Straw Hats will go to Elbaf and what their visit will look like. Be warned that this video contains manga spoilers for anime-only fans. Before I get started, make sure to comment with your thoughts on Elbaf and the Giant Pirates. I'll pick my favorite and share it as comment of the week in the next video. This week's comment comes from Neo, who suggested I make a video on Yuzuriha from Dr. Stone. If you'd like more One Piece videos like this one, then make sure to subscribe so you can follow along with each week's video. With that out of the way, let's start by addressing the immediate issues following Wano. First, assuming the Straw Hats manage to beat Kaido and take his Road Poneglyph, they still only have 3. The first from Zoe and the second from Big Mom. In the Odin flashback, we were given the locations of all 4. One with Zoe, one with Wano, one with Big Mom, and then finally one on Fishman Island. So after Wano, the Straw Hats need to go after this final Poneglyph. The problem, of course, is that the Straw Hats never found this when they went to Fishman Island. This means that the Straw Hats need to go wherever this last Poneglyph is hiding. Now, it could be the case that the Whitebeard pirates moved it. Fishman Island was under the control of the Whitebeard pirates, so it's entirely possible that they moved it before Big Mom came along. Remember, Big Mom already had her own Poneglyph before Roger found the one on Fishman Island, so Big Mom wouldn't have taken this one. Knowing that the Whitebeard pirates understand the importance of the Poneglyph, they would want to move it somewhere safe. Where this would be is obviously unclear considering there's been no hints about this location. But the next issue will be the aftermath of the Reverie. Now, 3 major events take place a week after the actual Reverie. The Warlord system is dissolved, Sabo is suggested to have died, and something has happened to the Kingdom of Alabasta. It's important to point out that Sabo's death is only implied, at least from the reactions of the people who know him. We know he and the other members meant to declare war and save Kuma, but aside from that, we have no idea what actually happened. Then we have the Nefertari family. All we know is that Garp tells Neptune that some sort of incident occurred regarding Alabasta. He also tells the royal family not to fear the surface, suggesting that this incident was wicked enough to warrant legitimate fear. Aside from that, we have no idea what happened to the Nefertari family. The only hint we have is that Imu was holding a picture of Vivi before the 5 elders asked which light needed to be extinguished. Finally, we see the Marines confront the warlords. With the warlord system dissolved, it seems the world government wants to immediately capture each warlord rather than let them go free. So, what does this mean for the Straw Hats? First, they could be faced with the death of Sabo. If Sabo is still alive but held in prison, then they'll probably want to go save him. Second, they could be faced with the death or capture of Vivi. Same situation, if Vivi is captured, then the Straw Hats will want to go save her. Finally, the Straw Hats will be faced with the end of the warlords. It may be the case that someone like Boa has been captured and the Straw Hats want to go save her. Not Buggy though. The Straw Hats are all set with Buggy. Finally, before I address a possible trip to Elbaf, I need to quickly dismiss any claims of Big Mom going to Elbaf. Although Big Mom has her history with Elbaf, I just don't see it happening. It is of course way too early to be making this kind of statement, considering anything could happen to her during the raid. Still, assuming she isn't dead or in jail after the raid, I don't see any legitimate reason for Big Mom to go to Elbaf. She obviously wants to add giants to her family, but there's no chance of that happening following the incident with Loki. You could argue that she'll want to chase Luffy after Wano, but assuming he wins and the Big Mom pirates fail to kill him a second time, I tend to see them withdrawing to Whole Cake and preparing for whatever comes next. But with the immediate issues addressed, now we have to ask how Elbaf plays into any of this. So let's discuss the common factor among all of these issues. Who helped the Whitebeard pirates and has their respect? Who just so happens to be friends with a previous warlord? Who just so happened to be at the reverie right before the incidents with Sabo and Vivi? Shanks. Shanks is the common factor. Shanks is the only Yonko that the Whitebeard pirates trust and respect. It could be the case that they knew they couldn't protect the Poneglyph after Marineford, so they placed it under the protection of Shanks. Then, when Sabo and the Nefertari family were placed in danger, Shanks happened to be meeting with the 5 elders. We don't know the exact nature of their relationship, but it's safe to assume the 5 elders trust Shanks enough that they're actually comfortable having a private talk with him. So it's possible that Shanks intervened in these incidents and took Sabo and or Vivi somewhere safe while the world government proceeded with their plans. Now, one important detail that should be pointed out is that this scene with Imu takes place after the 5 elders talk with Shanks. This means that Shanks may have left Mary Joie before the incidents with Sabo and Vivi, but then we're left with the warlords. Now, the warlords were all on their respective islands, so it's not like Shanks could scoop them up like Sabo or Vivi. In the case of Boa specifically, I really don't see Shanks being able to save her from the Marines. Assuming, of course, she doesn't just slap them silly. But since Mihawk trusts and respects Shanks, it could be that he'll want to take refuge with Shanks to avoid any more attacks from the Marines. Of course, this assumes that Mihawk doesn't get arrested, but considering Mihawk is the strongest swordsman in the world, I have a good feeling he can make his way to Shanks just fine. So now the obvious question, of course, is what does Shanks have anything to do with Elbaf? Well, there are 2 videos that I need to bring up, one from Mr. Morj and one from Ohara, both of which are linked below, so please go check them out to hear their full explanations on the topic. Now, while these 2 connect Shanks and Elbaf in 2 different ways, their thoughts on the matter actually work together perfectly. In his video on Shanks as a pacifist, Ohara connects Shanks to the Nordic god of war and justice after explaining why Shanks seems to have a pacifist agenda. To be clear, pacifist in this sense means avoiding needless violence rather than violence altogether. And this is consistent with a line we get from Shanks at the memorial of Ace and Whitebeard. He admits that he wished Roger had run away from fights more often, suggesting that Shanks is opposed to needless fighting. Ohara points to the same theme of justice by pointing to a quote from Dory. Dory explains that when a dispute cannot be settled, the god of Elbaf decides who is right and lets them live. Since Elbaf is clearly influenced by Nordic culture, this would connect Shanks to Elbaf through this theme of war and justice. But even if Shanks has this connection, there's still the question of how this has any impact on the Straw Hats. And this is where Mr. Morj comes in. Mr. Morj explains in his video how Luffy, Zoro, and Usopp have unsettled business with Shanks, Mihawk, and Yasopp. He points out that Luffy wants to surpass Shanks, Zoro wants to beat Mihawk, and Usopp wants to meet Yasopp. While there is a clear desire to surpass these 3, there's also no bad blood. Because these 3 want to settle things without necessarily killing each other, Elbaf is the perfect place to host this kind of meeting. Mr. Morj cites the same quote from Dory about the god of Elbaf, but also compares the dynamic between Dory and Brogy to the dynamic between the Straw Hats and the Red Hair Pirates. He claims that, like the fight between Dory and Brogy, the Straw Hats have no animosity towards the Red Hair Pirates but have a need to prove their mettle. Since both crews respect each other but also want to stand out on top, it's reasonable to predict that this competition would take place on Elbaf and mirror that of Dory and Brogy. Now, Mr. Morj predicts that this will be settled through a Davy-back fight since it's already been presented and would therefore be a seamless transition into a respectful competition. Personally, I don't think this needs to be done through a Davy-back fight, but I do agree that reusing a system we've already seen would make for a seamless transition. So we know Shanks is connected to the culture of Elbaf. And we know Elbaf would be the perfect place for the Straw Hats to prove just how strong they are. But there's still the question of how the story will transition from Wano to Elbaf. Imagine the Straw Hats are ready to leave Wano and they need to decide where to go next. What would make them want to go to Elbaf? This is where those immediate issues come into play. The Straw Hats need the last Poneglyph, and it's possible that Shanks has control of this Poneglyph. the Straw Hats will want to save Vivi, Sabo, or whoever is in danger from the Reverie. But if Shanks is protecting them, then there's the possibility that they decide to go see Shanks and check on them. Finally, Mihawk is likely taking refuge under the protection of the Red Hair Pirates. If the Straw Hats run into Shanks, this would allow Zoro to confront Mihawk without having to go find him. Evidently, there's plenty of reasons why the Straw Hats will make Elbaf their next destination. They need to see Shanks about the final Poneglyph and the aftermath of the Reverie, because of his connection to Nordic culture, as well as a need to respectfully settle a dispute like Dory and Brogy. Shanks is likely waiting for the Straw Hats on Elbaf. As you can see, the Straw Hats will make Elbaf their next destination because of the immediate issues presented to them, as well as the lingering theme of war and justice that will be addressed in the next arc. And that's it for this theory on Elbaf. Hopefully I'm right and we finally get to visit the Island of Giant Warriors. If you enjoyed this theory, then make sure to like the video. If you'd like more videos like this one, then make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell to follow along with weekly One Piece and Dr. Stone videos. Thank you for watching, and I hope to hear from you soon.